Hey guys, I don't know what was going on. We had to exit, but welcome to Quantum Witch Cafe. We had to exit and come back. Leave me a message in the chat if everything's okay on your end and you can see us or see me. Marco's not back yet, but can you guys hear me? Let's see. All right, so we're live now. I'm just making sure that it says it's recording and everything. So maybe we had to exit and come back. Welcome
Hello,
to
everyone.
Hello. And again, please send me a message and everything's okay on your end if you can hear me and everything. That way we know that it's working.
It's all good on this end, so this is fine.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. It's recording. So if you don't see it now, okay, cool. So Julian says she could hear us. Awesome. Sorry about that, guys. StreamYard has never given me issues. It did right now, but it was an easy fix. We just had to leave and come back.
Easy,
Thanks for your help,
exactly.
Marco.
It's
And
like whenever something doesn't work, you just reset it, right?
right,
Start
turn it
again.
off, turn it on. Yeah. So today, first of all, welcome to Quantum Witch Cafe, which is your safe place to talk about anything strange, UAP, fringe, anything you want really, and UFOs, UAP if you're fancy, all that stuff. You guys know my passion is great authors, and this year I'm incorporating more authors of the occult and other fringe topics. Last year was heavy on UFOs and UAP, but I hope to get a little more diversity this year. So with that being said, I have Marco Visconti on. He is the author of, oh, you're not going to show. She doesn't want to show her boobs, guys. But if you go to my story, we have the author of the Aliester Crowley Manual. And this is Thelema and Magick for Modern Times. It's a beautiful hardcover thick book, and we're gonna have him tell you all about it. But before we do that, welcome Marco. Thank you so much for taking your time out of the day to come hang out with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I love doing this sort of introductions to magic, especially on stages where usually people don't listen, don't know much about magic. So I'm very happy to be here.
I'm very excited. Do you want to tell people, give yourself a brief intro? I like the author to kind of tell people about themselves because I feel like it means more coming from you. Because if I read it, it's going to be from your bio and it's going to be like blah, blah, blah. But if you tell people, it has a little more heart to it.
Of course. I was born in Rome, Italy, and I spent most of my childhood and adolescence actually moving between Italy and the United States. My father was working there a lot, so that's where I got my weird accent from. A little bit of, it's definitely not a British accent. Let's put it like that. Even if right now I live in London, UK, and I've been living here for the last 10 years, I've been interested in magic pretty much my entire life. As a child, I was fascinated by mythology. But then again, we would say, well, of course, like you were born in Rome, like you got all the mythology there. Well, I never really cared much for Roman or Greek mythology. I was really much more into Egyptian and Celtic mythology of all places. So, and all things. That kind of led me, on a path where I was already fascinated with the strange, with the, let's say, I was not much into football. I was much more into reading books and playing music, and then eventually, trying to see, okay, can you actually do magic for real? And that happened in the summer of 1990 when I was 12, and I just found out about this strange character called Aleister Crowley in a comic book of all places. And this guy was interesting to me because, as I said, I was born and bred in Rome, so Catholic country, kind of very I would say conservative kind of environment, and I didn't like it. And the fact that there was this guy that was kind of like the wickedest man in the world, that kind of sounded cool to me. Of course, in time I didn't know that you could have done many other things and just still go against the grain. But that's the path that I guess chose me instead of me choosing the path. I don't know. Anyway, long story short, I end up becoming a full-blown magician. I sought up initiations into various orders, various groups. By the time I was 18 and then 20, and then at the same time I became a musician, kind of like a decently successful musician in a very, very niche scene, which most of you might have not heard about, which is called industrial EBM and goth. And I played all
I was
over the
there.
world.
I love it. I was a little goth girl, so
I mean, like I was kind of doing well, but in a very, very, very tiny scene that kind of doesn't really exist anymore. I mean, goth scene exists again, of course, but it's just like the specific kind of music I was making, which is, I don't know, Depeche Mode meets Prodigy meets techno. Kind of existed for a while, but not really anymore. And at the same time, I was also, going through all my various initiations, trying to make sense of magic, make sense of what is called the great work. And many years later, I eventually ended up in London, where in the UK, where I am right now, and I've been living here for the last 10 years. And I became very much involved in the London Lodge of Ordo Templi Orientis, or OTO, which is one of the magical orders that was that pretty much like the OTO was not founded by Crowley, but Crowley became the figurehead of this order eventually. And for good part of the last decade, I was very much involved in it till something happened, and that something happened. That something that happened was, in fact, the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally in 2017, where it turned out that a lot of my brethren in OTO were, let's say, involved in very nefarious activities. Right? I don't want to get political. I would not get political, but let's say that I could not bear being part of that order anymore, and so I went solo pretty much. I started organizing my own group here in London, which is still thriving. Then the pandemic hit, right? And what happened there is that I realized that I did have a tool that could help people, not maybe if not feeling better, but at least making sense of difficult times, which were shared by all of us, right? Which was no matter your beliefs or your ideas regarding the pandemic, we were all locked down for a while. That's the reality of that. And so I realized that Magick could help people to just find something to do, and that something to do was getting to know who they are better, and getting to know what their strengths are, and how they could actually tap into those strengths in order to make sense of a crazy world, right? And so I organized an online community, which was actually quite successful, because at the time we had at a peak of almost 300 people there. It's very, very, very active. We had like quite a big like Discord server. We had like live streams, eventually like streams like this, but done privately. And up until 3 times a week, I was there teaching magic pretty much every night. Again, we didn't have anything else to do, right? So that was the best thing I could do with my time. And it's interesting because 3 years later, almost 3 years later now, if you think about it, a lot of those people who did that, that went on that path with me, they're still there in the community. They became amazing magicians on their own terms. Some of them went through very life-changing experiences, and I did with them. My life is very different from what it was before this experience. Magic is about transformation. If you engage with magic and nothing happens, I hate to break it on you, but maybe you haven't done real magic. Your magic really means that you engage with transformation. It is alchemical in its core nature. In order to finish this like rambly introduction, I like to ramble a lot, so sorry about that. But to finish that one, from all the experience of the online community, which is called Magic Without Tears, the book came out. Like at some point around a year ago, I found out that I had almost 300 pages of material that I read. I already wrote for the classes that I was teaching, and then one of the students of the course, actually of the community, actually suggested me, why don't you edit it and present it to to the publisher? And so I did, and here it is. It's now out. It exists. It has a beautiful red cover, which you cannot miss. Right? It's very in your face. But yeah, and this is what came out of it. And to be fair, I'll be very honest with you. I'm very proud of it. It is a book that it's not written for people that already know about Crowley, know about Thelema, or even know about magic. Right? I think those people will find something interesting in it. But this book is written for the person doesn't know anything at all, and maybe they might even have some preconceptions about what it is, how you do it, is it good, is it bad, and I'm really trying to, in this book, trying to deconstruct it try to speak in the most colloquial and simple language possible, possibly because, you know, English is not my mother tongue, so I kind of go very flowery with it. And it wouldn't suit me really. But, you know, like the idea was really like, you know, breaking it down, making it clear for everyone to understand it, and also kind of setting some expectations. A lot of people, I mean, let's say we went through a massive magical revival in the last decade, right? I would say I've started seeing like the signs of this revival right in 2008, so we're talking like 15 years ago. And then, you know, the 2010s were like the boom of, you know, the return of the witchcraft, and then the boom of witch talk, the boom of, you know, witches of Instagram, all this thing that kind of brought a new blood in, like I remembered in the 90s the show Charmed did, right? And then all the various movies that came out in the 90s, like kind of had that's
Yeah.
the first revival that I remember, right? I guess maybe you remember as well.
I do, yeah. It was awesome.
It was absolutely. And so, you know, what I realized though, that a lot of people kind of felt scared of like making the jump from what would seem a relatively simple practice. Witchcraft is not simple at all, can be very, very complex and very engaging, in fact. But somehow, you know, my type of magic always felt a little bit more obscure and a little bit more complex. And the reality there is that it's not, right? Like if you break it down, if you tell people, you know, what to expect, how long they must stay with this practice or that other practice, everybody can do it, right? And in fact, I hope more people will do it, because magic can change their lives for the best. So yeah, that's my little introduction.
No, and that answers my first question, is like, why did you feel the need for the book? You know, it definitely reads, your humor comes through in it. And oh my gosh, of course, one kid's crying now. Sorry, guys. It's like you were talking the whole time, didn't want to cry. Hey, we'll have to figure this out later, okay? My husband was supposed to be home, and he's not. So go hit him back. Go hit him back. This is real life, guys. I'm sorry. I stay home with my kids, and my husband was supposed to be here, and he had to stay at work because of Army stuff. So the Army, I'm actually.
We're gonna have a little bit of
Army's
background.
The wife. Yep. Just pretend it's a cat trying to get in. It'll be cuter.
Of course.
Just kidding. No, that's horrible. But anyways, as I was saying, this book reads like, you know, a lesson. Like you could go right into it, not knowing anything, and get a lot from it. What's interesting about it is I love how you break, you know, it into parts where you give an assignment at the end. So a lot of these where you kind of read these books and you're like, now what? Now what do I do with all this information? You're not like left with any of that. So excuse me for 1 second.
Of course, no worries.
Big brother versus little brother. It's like an older tale. It's, you know, Cain and Abel, right? I mean, hopefully. Anyways. But I love that about the book, and I was taking notes as I was reading it. I actually, you know, my magic's very eclectic, because trying to get into like Thelemic Magick and Crowley, it's just so much, and I was never around people that were doing it as well. So it felt kind of like I didn't have a lot of clarifying people to ask. And this now I obviously could hop online and find groups or find, you know, teachers like yourself. But when I first got into magic at a young age, I didn't have this, you know. I'm 39, so I had to like find the books physically. I couldn't just go like order them as easily. You had to order like in a catalog, and then if the spell had ingredients, you got to find the ingredients. And you know, there was a few magic shops around town, but not a lot. So this is something where it's very structured, and I love that about it. And I love that your humor comes through in the writing as well.
I'm glad to hear. I really hope that
reading it, and it's, yeah, and then you're like, you kind of laugh to yourself because of the way you write. So I loved at the beginning in the foreword, it was written by Peter Levenda, that he put magic is technology. It uses the tools of consciousness of the senses and the mechanisms of the body and the body-mind interface to cause changes to occur. It is, as Crowley said, both a science and an art. That is not a throwaway line. It's actually quite profound in its implications. And you talked about that right now when you were saying it's work.
Absolutely.
So
And
to
I think, I mean,
manipulate, to be able to manipulate that energy, you have to be able to step into these different states of mind, right? Or states of
absolutely.
existence.
Like, I was very lucky to have Peter, which is a long time, I would say, online friend. We never met in real life yet, unfortunately, but we've been talking for many years. Of course, I've been like a big fan of his books. I really like his approach to things, which is kind of formed mine, really. And so, when he accepted to do the intro, I mean, he really loved the book. He also really supported me. There were moments when I was like, I'm not going to do this. This is not people don't go out, people are going to hate it. And it's like, no, you need to do it because you are tapping onto something here. And those words are, I think, are very important, because the idea that Crowley did define magic in many ways, and I put various ways Crowley defines the book in magic in the book, right? The most famous maybe is like, magic is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with your will. Now, that seems simple, right? But of course, to understand what is will, and will with the capital W, it's not just whatever you want. I mean, there's a big thing in Thelema. Like, first of all, you have to understand what you want, and to understand what you want, to understand who you are. And that's a trip on itself, right? Like, first off, you have to do that. And then, this marriage of science and art, it seems like a throwaway line, but it's not, because science implies technology, of course. So the fact that you can all these rituals really are, I mean, you can think of them as yoga postures or yoga stations. Or if you're into martial arts, you can think of them as forms, or kata in karate. Like, whatever you do in order to go and do the fight, right? Like, you first train your body. But then there's the art part. And the art part, I think it's very important, because if the science does and the technology does bring this sort of logical structured approach to it, then you cannot do it without the art. That is, without the irrational, without the unexpected, without the stroke of the muse, and something comes from somewhere you do not understand it. In fact, magic will force you to allow for this super rational approach to things, because without that, which is something that we are constantly steeped into, that's, I would say, where all the ideas of the phenomenon comes from, if you want to use like a term that's more coming from the UFO or UAP community. That is super rational, that is art, okay, as I would define. And this marriage, this balancing act, is the role of the magician. Now, to draw a parallel, right? Like, we look at the tarot deck, which the tarot, it's not just a way to divine the future, but maybe it's a way to understand how the universe around and ourselves and our role in it. Well, in the original tarot decks, the French tarot decks, I'm thinking about them, Tarot de Marseille, for instance, the magician is called le bateleur, which is a strange term for juggler. And the juggler really is somebody, throws things in the air, and then everything is in perfect balance. And that's what the magician is. So, yeah, this book, I think, will teach people to become jugglers, but jugglers of the unconscious and the conscious at the same time. Yeah. In the meantime, I'm reading the comment, and there's one comment that really nails it.
Do you
Some of the
see?
are represented well in the show Strange Angel.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's Benji. Benji's amazing. Hi, Benji. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for your patience and for being here. Yeah, that's I love all the different decks too. You just spoke of the French deck, and I just, first of all, the artwork on that deck is just gorgeous, and also the way things are represented in different decks is also so amazing to me, and the different symbols that people keep in different ways throughout different decks. But yes, I haven't watched that. Benji, have you watched Strange Angel?
Absolutely. Okay. Not only I watched it, I was one of the people that were consulted for the show. So, Strange Angel is the story of Jack Parsons. Jack Parsons is this fantastic character that, if you never heard about him, that's a rabbit hole for you to go into. He was the guy
About
that
him. Okay. I'm surprised I didn't. Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
he was a Thelemite, he was a magician, and he
Oh,
also was the guy who invented the jet propulsion fuel. So if we went to the moon, now I'm not going to debate with people that think we didn't go to the moon, but anyway,
yeah, that's
if
another show. We'll do a
yeah,
moon conspiracy show.
Like if we fly jet is because Jack Parson, a magician, invented the fuel, the semi-solid fuel that permit jets to exist. Now, the show is very interesting because I think it's one of the best representations of Thelema in the mainstream media. And in fact, it was supposed to go for 5 seasons. He only stopped at 2. But Greg Wise, which is a very famous British actor and plays the Grand Magus, so like the lodge leader in the show. I don't remember the name in the show, but it's based on a character, or a real person, was called Wilfred T. Smith. This guy came to Ameth Lodge in London one day where I was doing the Gnostic Mass, which is a ritual, and asked me, because he was supposed to do the same ritual on show, say, okay, how do I do this? Well, so I had not just me, me and
Oh,
other people.
wow.
We had a nice chat with him. He is Emma Thompson. He is Emma Thompson's husband. So very, very famous actor. So it was very interesting. I mean, here in London, you did get a lot of celebrities popping by from time to time, Jimmy Page, many others. But the reality is that it was kind of funny to say, okay, right, you have like this famous actor that you've seen in many shows asking you how to be a Thelemic priest in order to be a Thelemic priest on Jack
Oh my
Parsons' show.
gosh. You're
That
like,
was fun.
how
It was
do you
fun time.
even advise that? I'll have to check it out. I'm familiar with Parsons, but I'm so out of the loop when it comes to like shows, so I'll have to check that out. But how do you even do that? I mean, it's kind of like what you did in the book, but they're pretending, right? So,
It is,
how
you
is
know,
it trying to take something and give it to Hollywood that is so sacred to you in a way that's still respectful to like the practice, I guess?
so first of all, I would say that there is one thing for Thelemites. Like, we Thelemites tend to be a little less worried about the sacred, in the sense, not because it's not important, but because I think we see the sacred into everything. Like, magic is the act of life. Everything we do, every willed action is an act of magic. So we're not really worried about people misrepresenting us, because they already do. Because already think that Thelema is the work of the devil, so that's not a problem. And also the idea is that I think that we really know that the more people actually can see the beauty in these rituals, the more they can actually get drawn to them. Also, it did help that this show was based on George Pendle's book, and George Pendle has always been very respectful to Thelema. Even when he wrote the book in the 2000, I don't remember, 15 years ago, something like that, he was very respectful. He was very interested. It is the best book on Parsons, by the way. There are several. They're all decent, but the Strange Angel is really, really good. And also, when the crew came to Ameth Lodge, they were very respectful. Greg Wise was very respectful. So in many ways, we were like, we could get people to do. They're going to do it anyway, right? So it's not like they're going to stop them if we say please don't. Let's hope they do a good job, and I think they did. It's what you if you're going to see it, and if for those of you who actually seen it, I think that it's not the same thing. Like, there was some sort of liberties that were being taken. For instance, the rituals in Strange Angel depict actual sex happening during these rituals, whereby in the rituals of the OTO, in the rituals of Thelema, 99% of the time the sex is sublimated, in the sense that there's only allegories, okay, whereby of course it's Hollywood. They had to put nudity.
Oh, of
Nudity,
course. Sex
it's what it is,
sells,
right?
you know.
But at the same time, Thelema doesn't have any problems with nudity. Thelema doesn't have any problem with sex, any
I
kind of
don't
sex.
think that anybody should in reality. How do you think you got here? What's your body? Like the people worried
Exactly.
about it are sexualizing it more than the people actually doing the practice. So
No, exactly, right. I think it's Thelema celebrates life and in all its beauty. Of course, it's paramount that any kind of sexual intercourse should be consensual between adults, and that only. That's
yes,
obvious to
absolutely.
me, and should be obvious to
Oh, yeah.
anybody with a
The
brain,
fact that we
right?
had to say it, and we do because
Yeah,
there's people
yeah,
that
exactly.
don't get
But
it.
once you have consenting adults, then yeah, I mean, sex magic is cool. However, um, for maybe those of, if anybody's listening, it's like, okay, then I'm gonna go and see a Gnostic mass. I'm gonna see a lot of sex. Not really. It's sublimated. There's allegories only. There will be nudity, but very tasteful nudity, and that's about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of glamour that goes into these sorts of scenes on TV. And so I watched Sabrina, and part of me was like, oh, cool, like it's Sabrina. And I think it's cool they took it with the dark twist. But then the other part of me is like, here we go. Now the rest of the world is going to think that magic is all about the devil again. And we kind of talked about this a little bit in the beginning, and Mitch Horowitz kind of touched on it. And I don't know actually if he talked to me about it, but he's written about kind of like the second satanic panic. Oh, I didn't realize that right until I said it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so can you explain what that is? Because I have some listeners that might not be into magic at all. And I have some, I posted the picture of the book and all this stuff, and automatically I'm getting messages from relatives worried about me talking about the devil. And I'm like, can you kind of, I don't want to say debunk or kind of break, like, in actuality, what some of these symbols mean, how they've been misconstrued throughout the media. Like, for example, Baphomet and the pentagram, like people automatically assume like it's for the Dark Lord, which,
Yeah, of course.
because a lot of people are so afraid of that. And you mentioned satanic panic happening again. And can you just, I know that was like 4 questions in one, but can you run through that, please?
I'll try. I'll try to give you like a bird's eye view of. I mean, it's a very
Yes.
complex subject, as you can imagine. I think we should start from one point, and that is that there are people out there that really believe that their religion is the only religion that exists or should exist, and they are the only ones who are good, while everything that deviates from their dogma is evil. Now, I'm not naming names because we could get many different religions that they all fit into this idea. Right?
Even some practitioners do it as well.
Absolutely,
Everybody,
absolutely.
there's somebody in every group, I guess.
So in general, like Crowley used to say that the devil is the god of those who lost the war, pretty much, right? Like, so in ancient times, if a population was conquered, then those gods would become the devils of the other religion, right? And it's kind of a simplification, but it can give you the idea of how this idea of the satanic panic can even happen. And satanic panic really is a term that stems from the 1980s, because in the 1980s, what happened there is that in the United States and then in the UK mostly, but there was in other countries as well, there were reports of young children reporting back that they were actually used in horrible ways in satanic rituals. A book came out called Michelle Remembers, and the story was in fact of this Michelle's girl that remembered that her parents were part of a satanic cult and they were abusing her. Now, a lot of people lost their livelihoods, their jobs, their lives on these stories that were going around. It has been proven beyond any reasonable doubt that these were actually false memories implanted by psychologists that were actually trying to push that idea that I said at the beginning, that their religion was the right religion. They were the good, and everything that was stemming outside of those boundaries was evil. And so they were finding ways to combat that evil, even if it meant to pretty much use psychology to implant false memories. Like, if anybody is curious about this, you can go, if you want to go on Wikipedia, look for satanic ritual abuse. There's a massively well-sourced article on Wikipedia alone, but then that's where you can start. There's all the proof in the world you need to realize that it's always been a lie. It was something that was used by people with an agenda. An agenda was, silencing the difference, silencing the oppressed, silencing everybody who didn't agree with them, right? There's another twist to that. This is not the first time that happened, because historically, SRA, or satanic ritual abuse, has a precedent, and that precedent is something called blood libel. Now, the blood libel hoax, or the blood libel, it's something that stems back from the Middle Ages and up. And this is where the time where Christians and Christian groups used to accuse Jews of killing children and eating children during their rituals. This is where the Jewish pogroms this is why Jewish pogroms happened. This is why the Jewish diaspora happened, because they were fleeing from Catholic countries because they were accused of killing people, which never happened either. Now, back to where we are right now, it's the same thing you hear in extreme conspiracy fringes. The idea that there is a secret elite of powerful people that are, like they're pulling the strings of the universe, pretty much, and they do that by, subjecting the children to terrible, unspeakable things. Pizzagate, right? I'm thinking about
Yep,
it.
Pizzagate.
Yeah, that was it. That was only the same blood libel of the Middle Ages, the same satanic ritual abuse of the 80s, repurposed once again, and it's always coming from a conservative, ultra-reactionary, often Christian type of group of people. And they're always trying to push this same agenda, because at the center of this problem is that there are religions that think they should be the only ones. And then there are religious groups, like most neo-pagan groups, or like Thelema, that will say, actually, do what you want, right? Worship who you want, as long as we live in a functioning society where we're all free and we all are able to live our lives the way we want, between consenting adults without touching the children.
We just need to make like a little sign to press, like a banner that we just press it and it goes up, so people know.
Exactly. And I think this is very important to underline, because people might misconstrue not just my words, but every time we
No,
discuss
it is
this
because
point.
people kind of
So
like hear things pop out when
exactly,
they're not paying attention.
exactly.
So when they
So
hear
as long
that,
as
they're like, oh,
I will tell you something. Like I've been very vocal in Thelemic groups. The idea that Thelema is and should be only for people that are 18 and up, not because anything weird happened in it. Like I said, sex magic is mostly, which is a part of Thelema. I write about it in the book. Uh, it's mostly performed via allegories, so there's almost never, and not even touching almost. But the point is that I really believe that Thelema should only be between people like adults, because a child, or even like a teenager, they're still developing their ideas, and you know as somebody who was baptized in the Catholic faith against my choice, because I was 4 months old and I didn't, well, 6 months old, but I didn't know any better. I really believe that people should have their say if they want to join this or that
absolutely,
group, right? Like that's it.
absolutely. Yep. And then
So
yeah, it's like it's a whole different type of choice that's made for you, and you're automatic the second you're born into a house that believes one thing and projects that onto you daily. It's sort of conditioned you in a certain way, and then some of this
absolutely,
is fine. Like some people just meditate all the time and do zen stuff, and then some people preach like the good things that are in the Bible that Jesus said, love thy neighbor, that sort of thing. But either way, I feel like a baptism is just like, you are this,
yeah,
and they'll go back to saying, well, we're saving their soul, kind of thing. So it's just like, it's such a complicated thing, and I agree that people need to be able to be old enough to make these decisions, because everybody needs to think back to when they were 18 and what
exactly.
you were
No,
thinking.
I mean, and if you think about it, if you read the Bible, Jesus was baptized when he was 30. So I mean, it's like he took his time, right? I mean, of course, there's a lot to be said there, but I mean, I'm joking, but that's the point, right? I really believe that religious choices should be made only by adults, even if it's just about adults, or young adults. But when you're under 18, what do you know about life? I would argue, what do you know about life for long up until after you're maybe 40, right, or 30
Oh
or
my
something.
gosh, yeah. Some people, like,
So
I got married when I was 30, so.
especially now that we live in life where it took so much longer for, like, we did live a period of life where things were kind of simple and easy. I mean, not for everybody, of course, but let's say in the West, right? So I mean, I really think that, I'm gonna be 45 this year, but I'm like the 35 of my father, right? Because I had a more or less pampered life, with the exception of the last few years, I would say. But apart from that, yeah. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, I
uh,
love that. You're right, though. You're right.
I'm
Are you seeing some of the comments? Is anything
yeah, I'm reading.
interesting?
Yeah, yeah. I think that yeah, Carolina Garcia is saying I'm Catholic and completed confirmation. Yeah, which is a choice you make as an adult to choose the Catholic path. Exactly happens. Well, it's interesting you say, Carolina, it happens for you around 18. In Italy, we were forced to go to confirmation at 12, and I didn't, and I discovered Crowley instead. So that's the thing. But I agree with you, like confirmation should happen at 18. And I mean, yeah, we can argue that 18, maybe you're still very young, right? You're still, I mean, you're an adult, you're not a young adult, but life hasn't had its way with you, for most people. Then of course there's always exceptions. Anyway, we've been rambling. we
Oh no,
went
it's
way.
good though. But we're learning a lot. I like it when somebody with knowledge rambles. It's not like you're rambling and nothing meaningful is coming out. A lot of meaning is coming out of it. So somebody said earlier that you have the best rambles,
Yeah, I
or
do.
you go on the best rants. So yes, I
Oh yeah,
appreciate the
I did.
rants.
I did. I
I
did.
saw it was
Specify
early in the
that.
chat.
Yeah, I,
So
I I do go for rambles. Yeah.
I love that the limit magic mixes in all these different things. And the funny thing, not the funny thing, but the interesting thing is that a lot of us who are magically inclined kind of just have like the inkling to do this stuff. You do a great meditation here about going into a tarot card
Yeah.
as a visualization. You can give away as much as you would like, but can you explain that to somebody? Like, how does that help somebody um, go into a liminal state or create something?
Of course. So first of all, I should forward this by saying that everything that pertains to visualization can become to you either very simply, or you can struggle with it. And this is something that I really didn't realize up until I started teaching these subjects. Because actually, one of my best students is Logan, and he suffers from what is called aphantasia. So he cannot really visualize very well. He closes his head, his eyes, and there's kind of like blackness. I close my eyes, and there's words there, and it's always been like this, right? Still, no matter if you suffer from prophantasia or aphantasia, so if you're very good at seeing things with your eyes closed or not, learning to visualize means really learning to sit still in silence, and instead of projecting your gaze outward and always looking what's around you, trying to go with your gaze inward, try to find what's happening inside of you, and you will discover that even if you don't see anything there, you will soon start maybe hearing, and I don't mean hearing with your ears, like hearing, feeling, all that immense world universe that really exists inside of you. Now, in this universe, and this is something that was codified much better than I can will ever do by Carl Gustav Jung, the famous psychologist. There are what we call archetypes, right? There are some ideas that are just shared by us, all of us that belong to the human species, right? All of us humans share these archetypes. So you can think of them like the mother, the father, the crone, the maiden. You can think like the vampire, the dragon, the unicorn. All these images that are very strong, that you kind of always known they exist. When you see them as a child for the first time, there's something that clicks with you, that's kind of more of a memory than something you just learned for the first time. Now, the tarot card, the tarot deck, is kind of based on these archetypes. Okay, everything you see in these cards, in the tarot cards, are representations, symbolic representations of these archetypes. So one of the exercise you find pretty early on in the book is like learning how to just get a card in front of you, and first of all try to to analyze whatever is there, right? And this works maybe better for those decks that are they're very like rich with imagery, like the Thought deck from Aleister Crowley and Lady Frida Harris. But in general, like every like image heavy deck will do. And it is that like you just want to first of all look at them, look at all the details, then close your eyes and see what happens if you know with your mind's eye you see yourself stepping into the card. Okay, and of course there's like you should be able to how do you say to learn how to control your breathing first, and these all exercises come earlier in the book, right? Control your breathing, learning how to have a posture, because like sitting with the spine erect is important. If you have problem with your back, that's fine, but you can lay down, as long as you lay down on a surface that's kind of like, it's not like those beds that go like this, like those very comfy bed
You
like
need
memory
good
foam.
spine support. You need a good mattress, guys.
It's a little bit of
So,
lumbar support, exactly. The idea is that you want to have your spine erect, and then you just like control your breathing. And the idea is that as you do these two things, no matter if you can visualize or not visualize at all, it will be easier to wrap your mind around the idea of remembering what you saw in the card, and then just really like stepping into the card. Now, when you step into the card, what happens is that maybe the first time nothing happens, right? The second time nothing happens. If you keep at it though, you will notice that at some point those archetypes that are encoded in the card, they will start making themselves present to you. That doesn't mean that you will hear a voice or a spirit will appear in front of you, or nothing like this. It means that in your inside inner eye you will start to get feelings, get emotions, get body sensations out of it. And all of this actually will help you create a series of experiences that will help you getting to know more about who you are. Because as I said, well, I told you before we started this, like the tarot really is a set of archetypes that tell you your story, not just the story of who you are right now, but pretty much like the path you could go on if you ever would decide to go on an initiatory path, right? And so learning these experiences and learning to interiorize these archetypes will come very useful when then you move on to the next exercises in the book, which can be a little bit more, will feel a little bit more magical, like pentagram exercises or hexagram exercises, and then moving on to the Thelemic magic, which is a little bit more complex. So yeah, it's a fun thing.
yes, for sure. And it's something, interestingly enough, I've just always been fascinated with cards. As I mentioned to Marco and some other people before, that my grandma used to read cards with a deck of playing cards. And I remember sneaking in one night and I got caught because I was being nosy, and she yelled at me to go back in the room. It's none of my business. She was Catholic. She wasn't supposed to be doing that, right? So, and a lot of my family didn't even know she did that. And before I left from Arizona to Alaska, she was like, she just spilled it all to me, like, you have these gifts and I wanted to teach you, but your mom wasn't comfortable with it. And so but so I've been fascinated with just holding cards and learning to shuffle them, and getting the first deck of tarot cards. Like, it's easy if you're an imaginative person to step into it, but like you said, some people have to work at it, but it's completely attainable. And you walk people like kind of like baby steps in the book, which
Yeah,
is great. And it starts with breath work, and it starts with it starts with expectations, and it starts with breath work. And I
yeah,
love that towards the end of the book, you're like, look, like if you're not, you are going to have to work, because some people will get on, TikTok and be like, 5 steps to manifest A, B, C, and it's just like people are wondering why it's not working.
because it's real.
Yes, well, you could literally and I get, like, yes, affirmations. It's kind of like you have to say these things, you have to visualize. I get it, but there's a little more that goes into it if you really want to transcend, like, within yourself, which sounds crazy
I
to
agree.
say, but
I think that in the book I say that learning magic is akin to training and then running a marathon. It's not a sprint; it's a marathon, right? So you need, if you want to have magic work for you, you have to put down the hours for training, and then once you start, you have to keep going, because you will get, if you learn stamina and endurance, if you put down that preparatory work, you will get to the end, but it's not a sprint. um, I grew up, I'm thinking about, really in the 90s and then 2000s, there were a lot of this magic, well, I guess like poetic talk, manifestation kind of videos. It was about, like learn, invoke Belial and become a living god. Yeah, that's a grift. There were people, I'm not gonna name names, but those are people that are there to extract money of you. I sell courses and books, and I will tell you, it's long, it's boring of times, it's very exciting at other times, but it's really like the first 6 months, it's just the grind, right? You have to really, really, really set yourself to just, it's almost like, if you ever gone to the gym, right? And if you never gone to the gym and you want to lift weights, well, the first few months gonna suck because it's just like you have no strength, you have no conditioning, and it just, everything seems impossible. But then it works, right? Then you see the difference in your body changes, and you can always start taking more and more weights, and everything gets better. That's exactly the same with magic. There's no shortcuts. That's how it is. Sorry,
Yes, absolutely.
I think I'm really bad at selling my courses, but that's it.
No, I think that like you said, with anything that is meaningful, it comes with practice and understanding and learning, and you can't just like get this injected into you and then it works, and we're part of the society that's like, I need information in 30 seconds, I need this quickly, I need that quickly, and we've lost the art of slowing down and being present, which is one of the hardest things that you'll do when you start a magical practice.
Absolutely.
Committing to something is another thing that we're bad at now. You're committing to these times in the day to do your practice. And I found it interesting that you have these, morning, afternoon, sunset, and then at nighttime, these different poses that you do to these gods, and it's beautiful because for some reason, inherently, as a little girl, my grandpa said I would go stand like in the morning and like have my hands out in the sun. He said it was like, my dad's side's Native American, so he's like, you're like your Indian side. They say Indian back in the day. So, but my dad's Native American, so he's like, you're like your dad's side. So it's interesting that these kind of things go through each people's belief system.
Absolutely.
Crowley did a great job of just collecting all the kind of like the greatest parts of some of these belief systems and incorporating it into Thelema.
And you know what? That's exactly what he wanted to do. I would argue that, maybe a lot of what he was doing, a lot of Thelema might feel appropriative in this day and age, because Crowley also, it wasn't the only one, right? Thinking of Theosophy was doing the same. Amorc was like, the American Rosicrucians were doing the same. The Kybalion, very famous book. Don't read the Kybalion, but it was doing the same. The point is that
Benji didn't just say that. Benji loves it. Me and Benji talk about the Kybalion.
I am not. I will fight the Kybalion until the end. It's not hermetic. It's basically Christian Science. It's manifestation. Don't do it.
Well, now I have to reread it with a different lens. Okay, so anyway.
Of course, I would say everybody should read it. It's important to read books. Never not read books, but it's not it. But the point is that, I would argue that, a lot of Thelema will feel appropriative, because the reality is that it's great that we're having these discussions in this day and age, right? It's great that, we are going to accept that a lot of our culture, as I'm a white male. I was growing in the West. A lot of my culture was definitely appropriative, imperialistic, colonialistic. It's all true. However, I don't see why we should, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Some people think, what, I don't care. I wanna throw it out, and that's fine. I don't see it because I know it works, and I know that if I show the correct respect to these terms, I have a part in the book that I say that we use Kabbalah with the Q. It's not Jewish mysticism. We should actually remember that there is a real very complex system of Bible exegesis, which is the true mystical Kabbalah. If you read The Unfortunate, she won't tell you that. Crowley won't tell you that. But I think that in 2023, it's my duty to tell my readers, like, what we're doing, it's a derivation of something else. We should do, like, show respect to every religion, but at the same time, it works.
It does.
So I'm not gonna like drop it.
Well, think about how like watered down we are as people now. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's some people that are like, you can trace your whole lineage. Like my dad's side is Native American, and it's like to get my card to say, hi, I'm Native American. You know, like
Yeah, yeah.
people are like, we couldn't trace back a certain part. We can only trace back so far because the Spaniards had kind of rearranged things, to put it nicely. And we had to have like go back in time essentially to find people that were still alive that still knew my family members in order for us to be accepted as a tribe,
Hmm.
because we didn't live on the reservation. They migrated to the city. So
Yeah.
my family did. So it's interesting how people are so angry about cultural appropriation, and I get it. I'm not saying that there isn't an argument saying that this should not be done, but at the same time, some of us don't know who we are,
Yeah, absolutely.
so if I'm adopted by somebody and they really raised me a certain way, but my lineage doesn't reflect that, like
Yeah,
genetically, are you going to tell me no? Or not only that, what if nothing else resonates with you, but
absolutely.
Crowley's does, or maybe something else does. So I feel like we have to hold space for those people, because shouldn't the greater goal to be help people come home into themselves
I
versus
would argue, yeah, I
this
would
is
argue
mine, this
yes.
is not mine? And also, who did anybody talk to the plant spirits if we're allowed to not use these? Like, I mean, I get it. I get it that things have been bastardized and appropriated. I get it. I'm not saying that's not happening. But at the same time, I think that we're all melting to a certain point where it's going to be hard to keep things pure and only this way.
And I argue, I don't think, humanity has always grown through syncretism, to cultures, meeting and mixing. And I think that's, I mean, like, maybe that's also why, I mean, that might be my bias, but I think like some of the most beautiful people out there are, mixed race, because, you get the best of both worlds, to be fair. Right. And again, I'm, I don't know, 12 generations Italian. So, like, I,
Me, you got all the lineage at once.
I go back to many years ago. So I'm definitely not mixed. So the point is, I don't know. We're rambling, but the point is that it's important to accept that a lot of the Western esoteric tradition, and definitely Thelema, is syncretic. Uh, it's important to recognize those roots, but then if something works, I'll use it. That's it. That's my stance, at least. Right. Let me see here something from the comments. Somebody was asking if the Kybalion is a new thought. Yes, it is new thought. Don't do it. Priscilla, I think you are muted.
I said earmuffs, Benji. Again, we're talking about the Kabbalion. There's just so much out there, Gosh, I could go on about your book. You guys just have to get it if you're interested in any of this. Even if you don't plan. I'm sorry. I'm fighting like this cold and kids being sick, all this stuff. So I probably sound super weird today. But you should get it if you're curious. If the image of Baphomet scares you, maybe you need to dig into that, because we have been taught things through pop culture and Hollywood and through religious conditioning that we didn't choose, to think that something is evil because it's different. So back to my other question, what is Baphomet? What does it represent? What is it meant to represent?
I mean, we have it here, right? So Baphomet, this image is a new version of the classic image that was put together, drawn by Eliphas Levi, a French occultist in the mid 1800s. Okay, Eliphas Levi was. So first of all, we should say, where does the name Baphomet comes from? We really don't know, in the sense that the first traces of this name come from the Templars. When the Order of the Temple, the one like the monastic and knightly order that conquered Jerusalem during the Crusades, and then lost Jerusalem and then conquered it again. Anyway, basically it spent almost 200 years in Jerusalem, becoming a very wealthy and powerful political entity in those times. They were eventually accused and killed by the King of France and the Pope in 1308, on the accusation that they became pretty much Satanists, right? Again, satanic panic once again. And during these the confessions that were extracted with torture, so you can imagine how much of these confessions were real. They did admit to idolatry and the fact that they discovered this idol in the Holy Land called Baphomet, and they became worshippers of Baphomet because it was this image that brought them riches and power, etc., etc. Now, a lot of linguists, a lot of historians over the last 1800s, I've been 1800 years, have been trying to figure out who was this Baphomet. And the reality is that Baphomet might just be a corruption of Muhammad, right? So the fact that what's really likely is that some Templars or all the Templars became syncretic with the religion of their enemies, the religion of Saladin, Islam, right? And of course, who is the prophet of Islam is Muhammad, which is kind of seen as a very, it's not seen as a god, of course, but it's one of the most revered figures in Islam. Almost like it is the intermediary with Allah, with God, and so it is can be, it's possible that this happened, syncretism, like we were just discussing, right? And it's possible that with these confessions extracted with torture, kind of deformed his name from Muhammad into Mahomet into Baphomet. Okay, now fast forward to the 1800s, Eliphas Levi, which is one of the most important fathers of the Western Esoteric tradition as we know it right now. He was the writer of the Dogme Rituel de la Haute Magie, which is a dogma and ritual of the high magic, kind of like a precursor to Crowley. Crowley would even say that Eliphas Levi was his previous incarnation, right? So basically, he was trying to put together a syncretic system of magic. And he decided to use this name from the Templar history because the Templars were still seen as almost like a mystical order that mixed together religious fervor, military might, and a sort of like magical knowledge in order to become successful and powerful for 200 years. And so he decided to use the name Baphomet, and he decided to once again create this kind of image, which really is, I'll show you, it is a symbol of the opposites, the two things that come to one. You have a man with breasts, you have the figure of an animal on the body of a man. You have somebody who's seated on earth, but has also wings, so he can go, where he can fly. And he has these things here written: you can see it, solve and coagula. That's Latin. It means to dissolve and to bring it together. Now, this idea, this interplay between opposites, this interplay between the highest and the lowest, the man and the animal, the divine and the human, the male and the female. It is alchemy, and alchemy really is the core of magic. It's this science and art of transmutation, of transformation, of bringing together two separate things that become one thing that's bigger of the sum of the two together. Okay, that's what Baphomet really is. It's a symbol of the union of the opposites.
So
Yes.
beautiful, so beautiful.
I mean,
I've never heard anybody explain it so powerfully and beautifully before, because I've been trying to figure it out, honestly, since I was a little, like, junior high girl that stumbled upon a satanic Bible and thrift store, So, and it has the image, it has the pentagram with the head in it. And then, absolutely, of course, I go down the rabbit holes because I love to research things. And
you know what? That's something that also, was used by. I mean, that image, right? The head of the Baphomet, the head of the goat, into then to inverted or averse pentagram. Once again, it's a symbol of the polarities, right? Really is a symbol of the highest and the lowest that comes together. It has been used by Anton LaVey in the Church of Satan. It's absolutely true, but it's something that it's a syncretism. It's something that happened later, and the beautiful thing with symbols is that nobody owns them. They have a life of their own, and people can come along and change the meaning of symbols. Think of the swastika. The swastika started as a symbol of the sun. It really is a symbol of the sun still in Hinduism. Unfortunately, we cannot really use it anymore because if you see a swastika, you will think of Nazis. That's how it is. Like symbols, unfortunately, can be co-opted, can go, they have their own lives, right? They can change, etc., etc., etc. But the core of the God of Mendes, of Baphomet, it really is a symbol of the union of the bestial and the animal, the high and the low, the opposites coming together, dissolving alchemically to form something that's higher than what they are. They're on their own, right? I can understand that can be a scary symbol, especially if you live, if all you need, or if you known all your life is maybe some kind of branches of very reactionary Christianity. I can get it. Crowley insisted on using this sort of shocking techniques because Thelema really was meant to be the shock to the system, right? It really is meant to be something that comes along and kind of gives you a jolt, almost like, hey, wake up. It doesn't tell you, if it's not your will to reject Christianity, you don't have to reject Christianity or Judaism or Islam or Hinduism. Doesn't matter. Um, it's more about having a jolt, a shock to the system, so you can look around yourself and make the decision for yourself. So these symbols, or the use of sex in ritual, or the use of maybe some sort of like strong imagery, really is about that. Hey, wake up. Maybe you don't want to wake up. Well, I'm going to show you a lot of things that I'm going to make you wake up and maybe make you think about it, right? That's it.
No, I love that. No, that's some people need that to kind of to realize that there's more than what we've experienced. It
um,
still happens even once you're studying.
there's an interesting question. Mark Rance is saying
Yeah.
Baphometis means baptism of wisdom, ancient Greek, I think. Yes, Baphometis really means baptism of wisdom, and it is from that book 1818, Mysterium Baphometum Revelatum. However, it's one possible etymology. There's many others. I think this is from Burgstall, if I'm not mistaken, that wrote that book, and it's one of them. The reality is that when you look at it kind of sounds good, right? It could be, but there's
Mhm.
many others, right? If people are curious, I can actually put there's I did write down all the various things. There's another one that thinks that all the letters are like basically a notaricon. That is, oh, each letter means another word, or you can actually deconstruct the word to make mean anything. Because the reality there is that at the end of the day, it's a powerful symbol. It's something that makes you think. It's something that leaves you with wonder. And this magic should leave you with wonder, should make you think, go and search for your truth. I'm not saying, do your own research, because those things go wrong usually. But the point is that it should leave you with wonder, and the will to go and explore these ideas. That, the book from 1818, it's definitely, he has good ideas. Okay, I like him. I like it a lot, but I cannot tell you that that's exactly it, because there are so many other possibilities there. So once again, I will possibly put in the comments of this video a very long. It's very you're gonna be bored by that, but a very long article that I wrote on the website of the group I lead, where you're gonna be bored about the Baphomet.
Yeah, you'll be like halfway through. I did put your website in the description, so if anybody's interested in checking that out, and you got links to all sorts of amazing articles. I told you I would only keep you for an hour,
Hmm.
but I have one more question. Can we do that?
Of
Or you?
course,
Okay.
please go ahead.
So, and I like to ask, like, pretty much all authors this that are open-minded and write about different sorts of things that might be deemed controversial. Out of all the things you've written about or taught, what is the most controversial topic that you have either written about or spoken about um, ever?
So I would say that right now, even talking about, even being public about being a Thelemite, it's controversial because you're getting a lot of friction from this new wave of satanic panic, right? But I think that the most controversial thing that, I mean, the thing that generated the most friction, I don't know if you want to go there, but it's been everything I wrote about magic and politics, really. Um, I'm not a leftist, but I'm an anti-fascist. Okay, I feel very strongly about that. and possibly because I'm Italian, and possibly because I, in the late '90s, I was a young goth kid in Rome, and 90% of my time was running away from fascists, was trying to beat me to death, because fascism never left Italy. If like that's something that a lot of people don't realize. But possibly this is why I'm so worried about whatever is happening in the world right now. So
We all should pay attention. You're a human. You should be worried.
and the thing is that, like, I think that the most controversial is that every time I try to make the point that Thelema is political, in the sense that it's not left or right, it's not conservative or liberal. A lot of people will try and make the point that Thelema should be conservative, Thelema should be ultra liberal. I think that Thelema should strike the balance in the middle, and that means that as Thelemites, we should always try to swing that pendulum on the opposite direction. In the sense that if right now we're living in very strong conservative times, then maybe it's time to try and push that pendulum back to the center. But it has to be in the center. If you go into 2 points of the spectrum, you're not in a good spot. That's the most controversial thing ever. It's not about sex magic. It's not about that I will say very openly. I'm going to say it right now that yes, part of my ritual includes sex, includes anointing the holy wafer with specific fluids and ingesting it. That's not the most controversial thing that people ask me about it. It's always when I speak of politics.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
People, it's interesting because everybody will say something different. I asked Mitch Horowitz that same question. I was like so surprised he said yes. I'm always nervous to approach authors because my channel is so small. So I don't really promote myself. Like, I don't know how to promote myself. I'm just doing this so I can be
I think
with
you're
it.
doing quite well. I mean, you're not that small. Trust me. Like,
I just love talking to people. This is kind of like, my step. Like, I can't talk. My husband's art. He's not into this sort of thing, or he's not into UFOs. So he just like lets me do my thing. And his mom is witchy, so she's like, just let her do her thing, like just let her. So she tells him, but it's refreshing to talk to other people that are interested in these sorts of topics, especially people like you that have studied this for so long and have been into this for so long. And I think that see, darn green screen. Okay, the book is definitely worth going into. I'm finishing a magical program right now, another book, and it's working with Hecate, and it's okay. Excuse my American accent for butchering every word that's not American or English American, because I know I just cannot say cool words. Sorry. Like when you said the French word earlier, I was like, oh my gosh.
No, Hecate is fine. Hecate is fine. I mean, the reality there is
it always sounds cooler when somebody has an accent and says. But I do plan on going through the book as a practice because it was the exercises you have in here. I'm not going to give away too many, but it involves you, like when you draw the tree of life and study it, and then it involves your body at different times of the day. And I was already burning like smudge at these sorts of days because I was just drawn to the sun in its different positions naturally. So check out the book, guys, even if you're not like, into a practice. And if you have been studying magic like I have, but haven't like nailed down one specific kind, I think that this book will kind of help you bring order. But sometimes I just need order. Sometimes I'm all over the place. I'm like, oh, there's my herbs, there's my crystals. And then I'm like, oh, there's my, my inherent stuff that I learned. And then I've got the Santeria stuff creeping in. I'm like, sometimes I just want to focus on one thing and learn how to grow that way with those different techniques, because maybe that'll take me somewhere, even though it's familiar. It'll take me somewhere I haven't been before within myself, or even in the cosmos on accident, like, astral. So I love your approach to this. I have Marco's, his website in the description, and there you can find everything about him, all his cool classes he teaches. And you have classes up. Once you teach a class, do you have it on there like for like on demand sort of thing, or is that kind of like
basically right now I restructured it into be everything on demand right there. Basically, if you go to magick.marcovisconti.org, you will see a series of options. There are, I think, like 3 or 4 1 hour introductory class on Crowley and Magick, on Babylon, which is a very important figure in Thelema. One on esoteric Freemasonry. I'm a Freemason as well. I really like it, so I decided, why don't we explain a little bit about what is Freemasonry as well? And then yes, then there's like something that's a bit like more like intensive. For instance, you have like one course which is called Magick Without Tears, and it's pretty much like over 3 months. It's kind of the book.
I love that name, by the way. It always makes me smile.
It's kind of the book but expanded, and basically what I did is I ran it the first time between September and December last year, and basically every week we would have like a 1 hour, 1 hour and a half like class online, and then you would have a little bit of work to do, and then the reality that you can join it right now. You can purchase it, and then all the material is recorded, and you can go on your own pace. And then what I'm doing right now, I started like 2 months ago, this 6 months exploration of the Thought Tarot, which is the specific tarot deck that Aleister Crowley and Lady Frida Aries created together. Most of you will, if you see the image, you recognize it. It's iconic. And the reality, what I'm doing here is that it's kind of the same approach, a little bit of lessons, written lessons, and then live streams where I go into path working this time, right? Remember when like that idea of like going into the card? Well, I'm guiding you into each card.
I love that. I love it.
And so basically, from that point, you kind of get the card itself teaching what the card means, and then of course after that I post the script, I post the commentary, and so by the end of, but basically we just started. People can join at any time, right? Yes, if you join at any time from since we started, like you're gonna have a little bit of catch up to do. But like I said, everything is recorded, so if you have interest in the thought deck or in tarot in general, join us, right? It's we're gonna like this first cohort will keep going every week till July, and then once again all the material will be ready, recorded, so people can go back to it anytime they want. Also, whenever you get one of these classes, you also get access to the community. I run it on Mighty Networks. It's kind of like Facebook without the boomers. Did I say that out loud? I think so.
I'm learning all sorts of things in my age. So the boomer was the one that I learned last year because my teenage neighbor that watched my kids. So no boomers, straightforward magic.
Exactly.
From the source.
That's it.
I have to give you a compliment though about your book. You have a QR code in it that has multimedia files, which is needed, because every time I get one of these books, it's like, okay, you're gonna do this, and then I'm like, do I need to record myself reading it to me, or you have to go to the website and you have to buy these things separately.
So basically, like at the end of the book, there's a QR code or a link. Unfortunately, I'm not going to put it on screen. Obviously, the idea is
obvious reason.
Like for instance, like you could join on the network and see all the. Basically, I recorded all the exercises. Like, so if you're curious about how to pronounce a word, or if you're curious about how doing the pentagram ritual, well, there's a video there that will show you. In that case, what my partner does, because I recorded her doing it. But there's another one.
That's helpful, because I remember first reading about that when I was like a teenager in other books, and I was like, what if I do this the wrong way? Like I got confused. So the videos definitely help. So thank you for that, because so many authors charge extra for that sort of thing, and I think this is just so good for people. Your book is so good. Like the first thing I was in there, like I wanted to start messaging you so fast, and I was like, no, you're gonna have him on. Leave the guy alone. You cannot rave about his book till you have him on. So it's very generous of you and very helpful to people that this might be 100% new to. Or even like me, like I've read it in the past. I was like, this is too much. I have nobody to clarify, so I'm just not going to do it. It's making it approachable.
Like what I like about the opportunity to do that is that that QR code. At the end of the book, you do get access to the network, right? So if you want to ask questions, and it's already been happening, right? Because a lot of people have been joining, a lot of people have been buying the books. Thank you all. People joining us, are getting, hey, can I ask you a question? Of course. Like, that's the best way to get a hold of me, because yes, I'm very active on social media. I'm not one of those people that, you don't know where they are. But if you, the best way, if you have a question about Magick, you got the book, you can get for free on the network, and you can ask me questions. And if I'm not there, there are going to be people, part of my community, that, I mean, I can see some of them here in the chat. Hello, Logan.
Thank you for coming. I
That,
see a lot
like,
of people that I've never seen, so thank you for coming.
like they will be able to answer the question if I'm not around, but I'm kind of always around. So I mean, like, I'm too old to go out anymore, so I'm now terminally online.
Thank you so much again for your time and for talking about this. We could have talked about some of these things for like a whole. She threw a Lego in here. And again, I apologize about the kids, guys. This was not in the plan, but
Don't worry,
fertility
it's all
happened
good.
and then husbands at work happened. So luckily I get to stay home with them and also be able to do this from time to time. And I love doing it during the daytime because I feel like more people engage. And also, but again, with kids, it's like, are they
Yeah,
going to be screaming? So thank you guys for living through that. Thank you, Marco, for living through that.
thank you.
Yelling about Legos, screaming bloody murder, whatever they're doing out there. But go to his website or go to Amazon, get the book. I'm going to leave my review tonight. I don't like leaving the review until after I have the person on because I don't want you to read it and be like, hey, like, I didn't like that. But it's all good, I promise. Where are you going to be next? Is there anything else you wanted to mention before we leave?
So basically, I will be. Oh, that's a good question. Like this weekend, on Friday, I'm gonna be in Leeds, up north here in the UK, to do this, but live, right? And then there's something else that was supposed to be announced today, but hasn't been announced yet. So I cannot really announce it. But it's another event here in the UK, in Leamington Spa, which is that's interesting. The Lego Ritual of the Pentagram. Okay, that's a good idea. Anyway, there will be an event here in the UK in a month time. I will announce it properly in Leamington Spa. Leamington Spa is the birthplace of Aleister Crowley. So it was going to be nice to bring the book where he was born.
Cool.
And then there's something, I'm trying to make something work for the United States. I haven't been on a plane in so long that I don't even know if I want to be on a plane anymore. But there's been like this idea of doing some things in the United States, maybe Los Angeles, maybe New York, maybe Chicago.
New York. I'm on the East Coast. So I have to be selfish. You got to be the East Coast.
If I'm able to do it, I'll try to do East Coast, West Coast, and maybe somewhere in the middle. Maybe two in the middle, up in Chicago and Austin, something like that. I don't know. I have ideas, but it's more about yeah, I mean, it's complicated, but everybody will know when it's
so follow
when it's
him
ready.
on social media. Go on his website. Follow him everywhere you can, because he's doing all this cool stuff, and this book is going to grow. And I see like tons of little Thelemites just popping up around the world because of it, and taking agency in their own life because of it. So thank you so much for coming on. Hang out backstage when I end the broadcast. And we have now we started a Lego rant in the chat. So yep, Hogwarts Legoland. I love it. That's like the only toy I like playing with, like just Legos. Anyways, Lego.
I think I need to do this Lego series.
So Marco's coming out with his old Lego, the Thelemic Temple Lego. I'm just kidding, guys. He's not actually doing that, but he should, because we would all buy it. Thank you, everybody, for joining, listening now
Thank you
or
so
later, on audio only. Come check out the YouTube. And if you are wanting to listen to this, I am now on Spotify, Google, and Apple. How did I forget about Apple? But I'm all the things now. So I will have this uploaded within the week. And yes, and I'll see you guys for book club, which I will post the actual date because I have some things to confirm for that. But we are reading Earth Lights Revelation, which is about different sorts of lights and how people think they're UFOs, but they might be Earth lights in natural causes, but then they might not be, because that's how UFOs are. It could even get more confusing than Crowley at times in UFO land. So thank you so much again. I will see you all soon. Have a good night or evening, middle of the day, whatever you are.